Yes, that was UCLA early this morning, East Coast time, and even earlier, West Coast time. We got violence. We got a lot of whacking and punching going on. We got a guy with an orange safety vest going around with a 6-foot-long Buford Pusser club hitting people with it. I think the orange safety vest is the part that's out of context for me. For me, anyway. Well, happy Wednesday to you and welcome back. I do love this Slutsky woman at Columbia University who's a PhD candidate and a radical left-wing extremist working on her PhD at Columbia University, an Ivy League school in Manhattan, New York City, USA. I love her dissertation. She's still working on it. It'll probably never be finished, and eventually she'll have to self-immolate. My dissertation is on fantasies of limitless energy in the transatlantic romantic imagination from 1760 to 1860. The world can't wait. My goal is to write a prehistory of metabolic rift, Karl Marx's term for the disruption of energy circuits caused by industrialization under capitalism. Sure, absolutely. I'm particularly interested in theories of the imagination and poetry as interpreted through a Marxian lens in order to update and propose an alternative to historicist ideological critiques of the romantic imagination. You know, the world is clamoring for this woman to finish her work because that is the most abstract, obscure, demented life work that anyone has ever heard of. No one will read whatever it is you type. But thanks to the patriarchy, you'll do it on a computer with electricity in a safe environment. Well, if you guys have your way, not safe. Just amazing. So a woman who worked on leftist and progressive causes as a political strategist. And now she's at Columbia University being a mental case there. Very mental, seriously mental. That's what I'm talking about. All right, we have a great deal of audio to get to. We have a great many topics to get to, from more billions more to pay off student loans, because look what's going on in our campuses. You know, we should not only cancel any payment of student loans, we should cancel colleges and universities and shut them down and force them to start over again. They can take their tens of billions of dollars in endowments and do it that way. But before we do, great callers also. Let us go to a telephone call, Michael. Let's go to Chris calling from Marshall, Virginia. Chris, you're on the Chris Plant Show. You know, we've been talking about the commies behind a lot of this stuff, and there are commies all over the place here. Believe it or not, it's kind of amazing. I've been talking about the Party for Socialism and Liberation that is all over these marches and rallies, and the banners have their names on them, and the press can't see them because they can't read and they can't think and they don't cover the news. But Christopher, you've got another contribution to make on this topic.
I certainly do, sir, and it's always an honor. I'm calling, of course, from the front line of the heartland. Listen, I am not one to short our good friend Soros of any critique that he deserves. However, he's an easy go-to. He's an easy fall guy. There are others. There's a particular couple named Neville Roy Singham, Singham, and his delightful wife, Jody Evans. Well, Neville is a devout, admitted, proclaimed Marxist, not a communist, not a socialist, but a Marxist. He's American. He's a tech billionaire. And his wife, she's the progeny that brings us Code Pink. They are the money behind this current rash of protests. They bought the tents, they bought the signs, they bought the hardware. They're paying them. There's another company. It's not Neville's company, but it's one they contract with that anybody can go to if you want protest in a box. It's called protestsondemand.com. This is not grassroots. This is 100% AstroTurf. The other one that we need to pay more scrutiny to that gets a free pass is our own New York Bloomberg. He owns Moms Demand Action and Everytown for Gun Violence. He's a stated gun grabber. He gets a pass because he's a New Yorker and he's American, and it's not as easy to mock him like it is, the Soros was Austrian. He's the easy enemy to point to, but we need to be more precise with our words.
Yeah, Soros, I think, is Hungarian. I think he's Hungarian, right? But listen, you're right about these lunatics that you cite. And this guy Singham is technically, I did a little reading about him, and Neville Roy Singham. He a social activist.
Not quite a billionaire. I think he had like 780 million.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He sold his software ThoughtWorks for $785 million in 2017. And he founded this company, and he went to Howard University, actually, in Washington, D.C., and he identifies as black, although, he could pass. Truth be told, he is a socialist and supporter of Maoism, of Chairman Mao, who is responsible for murdering more human beings than any other person in the history of humankind. And he proudly self-describes as a Maoist, all right? And the New York Times calls him a Maoist. He told the New York Times that he self-describes as a socialist who is a Maoist. And he helps to fund causes and groups that promote, listen to this, pro-Chinese government messages. And that's okay with the New York Times and the Democrat Party. And he is married to this woman, again, $785 million. And he's here to undermine the Western world and undermine the United States and uses money. Capitalism, it's the capitalist will sell you the rope with which to hang them. And he was bought out in 2017 for $785 million. And he's been using the money to advance Maoism and socialism, which can only lead to mass murder by the millions. And this is what these people, you people, if they were here, I'd have to call them you people, and the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is all over this. And then, of course, let's not completely forget George Soros, because, Chris, he's been doing his part too, and his son Alex and George, they're very much in the middle of this. And the Economic Times, George Soros, elites funding agitators for pro-Palestinian protests on U.S. campuses. And the New York Post, Soros and other elites are funding the campus agitators, stoking anti-Israel sentiments and protests. So we got these radical left-wing individuals, and they're billionaires, or nearly billionaires, as you say, Chris. And we've got the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which literally on their website, their goal is to save the planet by destroying capitalism. And these guys are all over this. Now, what you might ask, Christopher, what does this have to do with Hamas? And it has nothing to do with Hamas, but they're birds of a feather. They are totalitarian.
Destabilizing the American system. It has to do with destabilization, and that's what they're all about. This has been decades in the making.
Yep.
When somebody launches an attack on somebody, they don't. We've seen it in so many Hollywood movies where they say, wait, and the enemy's getting closer and closer and closer, and then they're in the valley or they fall into a trap, and that's when they spring it. The last minute. This is not recent. This is not new. This has been going on. We had the Confucius Institutes. We have the divest, boycott, and what's the other, the BDS or whatever it is.
Yeah, sanction Israel, boycott, divest, and sanction from Israel. And they're all about that in their list of demands, these miscreants, these morons on college campuses.
We should on us very strategically, and it's been planned for decades. And some of us have been screeching about it our whole lives. And I'm 57, and it's coming to fruition.
Our chickens are coming home to roost. And you're absolutely right. The left has been planting the seeds on college campuses and high schools and in Hollywood for decades, for a couple of generations now. And you're right. And listen, Chris, when the getting some screechy from the background there. Sorry, but the Occupy Wall Street thing came along, right? And And I was describing it at the time as an organizing phase because it's about nothing. I was comparing it to the TV show Seinfeld. It's the protest movement about nothing. And what it was about was getting these mental cases who will sleep in their own feces in the rape tent of the lower Manhattan sidewalk tent city, and they'll sign up for their Facebook pages and their Twitter feeds, and then they can just ring the dinner bell, and all these morons will come out of their mother's basements and show up to tear down the Jews. But they're brainwashed, they're indoctrinated, they're desperate to belong to anything, any club that will accept them. And it's been an amazing thing to see. But, you know, Chris, you're 100% right. You're right about Neville Roy Singham, and you're right about Soros as well. Soros is one of the bad actors in this. And I came in this morning, one of the first things I said this morning is that it's past time for George Soros to be charged with crimes. A Republican attorney general or district attorney needs to charge George Soros with conspiracy and insurrection and a whole range of other crimes, felonies, and then send a team of heavily armed, body armored. They should come in an armored vehicle. CNN camera crew wouldn't come because they'd tip them off ahead of time because they're like commie screws mixed in the machine. But this is no joke. This is real. And Chris, thank you for the call. Now let's go to some audio of these lunatics because let's go to Columbia University. This is kind of now. Yesterday, the police went into the Hamilton building with a custom vehicle that kind of built a ramp for them, a staircase in the back, armored vehicle, large vehicle, carries a lot of guys in the back with rifles. And they went in through a second floor window and they grabbed a whole bunch of these commie Hamas morons who are death to civilization. That's what they should really be chanting. Should have death to civilization. That's what they stand for. But listen to this guy. He's standing there and he's got criminal written all over him and he's arrogant and he said, "Hey, looks like you and your pals are about to be arrested. Aren't you worried about being arrested by the police and thrown in jail?" And the computer just crashed on me. That's a good thing. That's always good. And this guy, this left-wing radical miscreant, he said, hey, look, that's no problem. We all get it. It's New York. We commit crimes all over the place, and the Democrats just put us back on the street to commit more crimes.
What will you guys do when the police come right in here and, end up maybe handcuffing people and arresting them?
We'll do what we always done. We'll get arrested, just like the criminals in the subway. They're always right back out in 24 hours.
We'll do what we've always done. We get arrested, and it's consequence-free. It's just window dressing. It's theater. It's entirely performative, as people like to say. It is the left. I've been talking about this for how long now? This is the real left. These aren't liberals. This is not American liberalism by any stretch of the imagination. This is the worldwide left, and it's being funded by communist China. It's being praised and probably funded by Iran. And since Joe Biden and Barack Obama are the primary funders of Iran and the Islamic Revolution there, funding the Houthis and Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah, pay no attention. The Democrat Party they've funneled billions and made sure that tens of billions were freed up to go to Iran to fund the global jihad, which is now here. And we've the left has raised a generation or two in America that are so profoundly ignorant that they will join anything that passes by with somebody playing a kazoo. They love music and rhyming things. They love rhymes. Hey, do you have odors in your home that you just can't get rid of? Well, now you can get rid of any stinky odor with the Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifier. We've got 2 of them at home. The Thunderstorm gets rid of any strong odors from cooking, cigarette smoke, litter boxes, trash cans. Even left-wing protesters are no match for the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. The thunderstorm starts working in a matter of seconds to clear any room of any odor. Plus, you don't have to buy filters and pay lots of money and schedule replacing your filters. You can hold a thunderstorm in your hand. It's only this big. It's like only as far across as your cell phone. And with more than 350,000 thunderstorms already sold, thousands of 5-star reviews online, it works like a champ. And this week, I've got a great deal for you to get your own thunderstorm. Because right now, you can save $200 on the Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for a whole home protection. That's 3 units for under $200. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com, EdenPureDeals.com, enter the discount code Chris. That's me. That's EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is Chris. Plus, you get free shipping because you hang with me. Yeah, so we've got, hey, I'm not worried. They're going to arrest us and they're going to let me go. I'm going to be back on the street to be a commie Hamas stooge. I'm a pigeon. Hamas loves them. Iran loves them. China loves them. Russia loves them. They're not on our side. They're here to destroy the United States of America. Their name is the Democratic Party. Make no mistake about it. They've done this to this country, and they've done it over the course of years, as Chris was saying. And now they've opened the cage door, and the moron animal army is on the loose. For how long have I been saying they're not on our side? They're not on our side. The New York Post with a story: no one familiar with the state of modern academia can be much surprised by the wave of anti-Israel tent city occupations sweeping U.S. campuses. In New Orleans at Tulane University, violence last night because they love the jihad and they call themselves liberals, which is a clear sign of brain damage. And at New York City College, there were more than 100 people arrested last night. And just watching this, what's going on, is crazy. But the New York Post discovered lefty philanthropists, so-called, are funding the student protest leaders. And it may just be the tip of the iceberg. From Harvard and Yale to Berkeley to Ohio State to Emory and Georgia, and now New York City College and Tulane in New Orleans, they're funding it. And now you know what Joe Biden's plan is for Gazans and the United States? I've got that coming up. Now, when Democrats see everything going on the way that it's going on, the anarchy in the United States that is entirely on the Democratic Party, they say, how can we really screw the United States of America? And there must be 1,000 different ways. And they put together blue ribbon panels that sit in faculty lounges and get into the hot tub with their hands under the water. And they noodle on ways to damage the United States of America, and they come up with ways. And the headline in the New York Post today: Biden administration considers accepting Gazan refugees from Israel-Hamas war. Oh, the poor, poor Nazis, the poor, poor genocidal lunatics. Now, the Biden administration looking at taking who knows how many. No, they're not saying. They won't say. And they'll lie to us about it, of course. And in the meantime, we've got how many people, a record number of people on the terror watch list that have just been caught strolling across our southern border from all kinds of beep-hole countries in the Middle East and every place else, Central Asia, Central Africa, doesn't matter. And we got cannibal, barbecuing the cannibals from Haiti. And you can just walk into the country and the Democrats will give you somebody's daughter to, use as a pillow because they're not on your side. So the Biden administration mulling plans to welcome into the U.S. a number of Palestinian refugees, they say, fleeing the region amid the bloody Israel-Hamas war. And they floated over recent weeks, been talking about it for weeks, and now it's leaking. It was actually CBS News that reported the story initially, And they said, documents show that the Biden people, the Democrats, are looking at waving terrorists by the thousands into this country because they hate America. Any other possible explanation? But amazing stuff. And it would require cooperation with Egypt. See? Palestinians who have family in the U.S., and there are many, may also get admittance. Now, that's a different category of people. So they're looking for new categories of Palestinian people to wave into the United States because, they're not on our side. Just amazing. And we've already taken in refugees. It's something that we do, but honestly, first, let's have another discussion. Release the hostages, you filthy savages. Let's start with that. Second, hand over your leadership to be tried as war criminals. Okay? Those are the first two things. Then we can talk about, also, we've got an update on this Pier, and the Secretary of Defense was on Capitol Hill yesterday embarrassing himself. Just ridiculous. Congressman Matt Gaetz with him. But here's the Biden White House and the Democrats looking for ways to bring more radical Islamic jihadi terrorists bitter about the United States. Sirhan. You see, one of the demands, they've got a list of demands on the campuses, is to release Sirhan. It's not really, I made that up, but it might as well be because their other demands are similarly absurd. Just amazing how awful these people are. But let's go to the Secretary of Defense and Congressman Matt Gaetz, who I think is a ton of fun. Oh yeah, by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I don't think is any fun at all anymore, is planning on pulling together a vote next month to eject the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. And that was hanging until this morning, and now we know that she is planning on going forward with a vote to oust the Republican Speaker of the House. And I've got some audio for you on that, too. And now even the Democrats are saying, even Hakeem Jeffries, who was raised by a virulent anti-Semite, his uncle, the professor, but never mind that. And the Democrats are saying, you know what, enough chaos already. And I think it's a really bad idea that Marjorie Taylor Greene has, and she should drop it and maybe do something that will help the party win the elections in November and save the republic from the troglodytes and their allies. But we'll get to that, I think. Now let's go to the Secretary of Defense, because one of the things that the Democrats are doing, Joe Biden and the Democrats, is they are building a port facility for a terrorist group called Hamas. And Joe Biden announced last week $1 billion for Gaza, which is run by Hamas, which was elected by Hamas voters. And hey, another $1 billion it's only going to be for sandwiches and shoes. And of course, they're lying. It's only going to be for ammunition and for kidnapping and holding hostages and torturing people to death, because that's your Democrat Party. But they're also building a Pier facility, a port facility for a terrorist group, Hamas, dedicated to the extermination of the Jewish people. And the Democrats are helping them because the Democrats are not liberals. They're the left, and they're not on the side of civilization. But the port facility thing is truly ridiculous. And we're building it right now. It's under construction. And there was a remarkable moment, a noteworthy moment yesterday on Capitol Hill when Matt Gaetz put the question to the Secretary of the entire Department of Defense, Lloyd Austin, who is a former four-star general, Army general, and now the Secretary of Defense, because it's all military all the time. Pentagon spokesman is military. National Security spokesman is military in the White House, Cobble Kirby, and so on. But here's Matt Gaetz, and listen to this, because I talked about this from day one. I said, all right, wait a minute. So you're going to build a port facility on the beach in the sand in the Gaza, and they're not going to shoot you and fire mortar rounds at you and rocket-propelled grenades, and they're not going to try to kill American troops that are building and delivering this port facility, a pier, a dock, and it's more than just that. And we're building it right now, and we're going to push it onto the sand, and then Hamas, a genocidal terrorist army, is going to say, oh, thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you, America. Now take us as refugee to your home so we can kill your daughter and put her head on a pike and take hostages. And that's okay. That's the Democrat Party. They're the party of terrorist groups, too, from the KKK to the SDS to the Weather Underground and the Symbionese Liberation Army, often left out of the lineup. But here is I got to say, he embarrassed himself terribly yesterday when Matt Gaetz, God bless him, asked a great couple of questions about what their lame-brained, idiotic plan is to build a port facility in Gaza without getting into a shooting war with a terrorist army called Hamas.
There'll be about 1,000 U.S. service members operating a Pier system off of Gaza. How many of them will have guns, Mr. Secretary?
Well, typically all of the deployed service members carry guns, and they have the ability to protect themselves if challenged.
So
That's
if
good.
someone from land in Gaza shoots at our service members who are on the $320 million pier that we're building, you're telling me our service members can shoot back?
They have the right to return fire to protect themselves.
Oh, they have the right to return fire to protect themselves, which is good. I'm glad to hear that, because there's a terrorist army on the beach right there, and they're a gang of bloodthirsty ghouls, murderers, kidnappers, career war criminals. And you guys are thinking, from Joe Biden down to you, the Secretary of the entire Department of Defense, that we're just going to build this port facility and put it on the sand, and these animals who are still raping hostages every day, if they're living, and maybe even if they're not, because these are not good people. And this is all going to work out just fine.
Well, do we think that's so now I want to move to the likelihood that you think someone from land in Gaza might shoot at our service members on this pier. Do you think that's a likely scenario?
That's possible, yes.
This is a very telling moment, Mr. Secretary, because you've said something that's quite possible that could happen, right? Shots from Gaza on our service members, and then the response, our armed service members shooting live fire into Gaza. That is a possible outcome here, so that we can become the Port Authority and run this pier. Right?
That's correct.
That's correct. Yeah. We're so stupid. We're going to send 1,000 troops into the middle of Gaza, run by a terrorist army called Hamas, so we can build a port facility so that we can deliver the terrorist army supplies. And they say it's just going to be sandwiches from Subway or something. And it's not. And that they're going to sit still for this and say, oh, sure, come on in, America. We love America. No, total destruction of the state of the state of Israel and total destruction of the United States of America. Their stated goals. So when they shoot at us 1,000 troops to bring this port facility, in which they make sound like, well, we're just going to push it onto the beach and then walk away, everything is a lie from these people. And remember, no war under Donald Trump, no war in Ukraine, no war in Europe. You know, under Barack Obama, Russia took the Crimea away from Ukraine, at least a major portion of it, militarily. And Barack Obama did nothing because he's not on our side. He was mentored by a communist named Frank Marshall Davis, and he's a Saul Alinskyite who's all about destroying America. And he's up the yin-yang. Just ask Larry Sinclair. Up the yin-yang, he is an Alinskyite and anti-American, honestly. And I mean, I gotta keep reminding the Party for Socialism and Liberation is not behind the curtain. They're out on the stage, front and center, and our entire news media fails to notice that the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the lead page of their website is about destroying capitalism to save the world because, capitalism has saved the world and they need to kill everybody. So their plans are the lamest plans that anybody's ever seen. Everywhere you go, just amazing. And so, yeah, sure, the terrorist army there is very likely to shoot at our 1,000 troops who are on this charitable humanitarian mission for a genocidal band of medieval terrorists who are still holding Americans hostage, and we're promising $1 billion, building a port facility, and sending 1,000 young men in there to take shots from Gaza and Hamas, and then, we'll shoot back. Everything's fine. I'll bring in some attack helicopters and smoke the whole city block if a shot comes from there, which is what invariably will need to happen under those circumstances. Matt Gaetz and honestly, I wanted to have a great deal of respect for Lloyd Austin when he came on board, and he's proved to be an embarrassment again, and he disappeared for weeks when he's having medical issues, and oh no, I didn't tell my deputy, and I didn't tell anybody, and nobody knew where he was. Hey, where's Secretary of Defense? Got like 5 wars going on under George Bush, Joe Biden. That was a little slip there. That was funny. And just amazing stuff.
I expect that we will always have the ability to protect ourselves.
Don't you think that counts as boots on the ground? President Biden told the country that we weren't going to have boots on the ground in Gaza.
And we won't.
Okay, but you guys parse the distinction.
Listen to this.
Between, like, when Americans think boots on the ground, they think Americans in harm's way or engaged actively in a conflict. You guys seem to be sort of saying that boots on a pier connected to the ground, connected to service members shooting into Gaza, doesn't count as boots on the ground?
It does not.
I think you're going to find the American people have a different perspective on that. And if we're going to have people shooting into Gaza, we probably should have a vote on that, pursuant to our war powers.
Now, that is, God bless Matt Gaetz, and I've had Matt Gaetz on my Newsmax television show a couple of times, and I think he's great, and he's a lot of fun, and he's smart, and he's quick, and he keeps going, and he's relentless, and he knows how ridiculous all of this is, and he called the Secretary of Defense on it, which is exactly what our Congress ought to be doing if we only had a news media, because that story is nowhere to be found. Nowhere. But that's not boots on the ground. It's the old boots on the ground turn of phrase. No, General, no, Mr. Secretary, that's definitely boots on the ground. That is, and so they got to stay on the pier. Don't step off of the pier that we built and we brought and we installed. Stay on the pier, then we can lie to the American people shamelessly, as Lloyd Austin just did right there, to lie and lie and lie. No, that's not boots on the ground. Sure, right. Our government lies to us like we're in the Soviet Union. Remember the Soviet author Elena Gorakova. The rules are simple. They lie to us. We know they're lying to us. They know we know they're lying, but they keep lying to us. And we keep pretending to believe them. Elena Gorakova, during the Soviet days, in her book, A Mountain of Crumbs. And Lloyd Austin just demonstrated that we're becoming the Soviet Union. I'm talking about the Maoists worth $785 million that's funding these protests. The billionaire George Soros from Hungary, who's funding these protests. The Party for Socialism and Liberation that is marching at the front of all of these rallies with their signs that identify them as the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And what was the other socialist group out there yesterday with their signs? And their signs are in plain sight, but the media never mentions them. Why do they never mention these socialist organizations, these commie organizations? Why, you might ask? It's because they're not a legitimate media. That's why. Also, Joe Biden flying illegal aliens into the country, flying them all over the place from B-pole countries. I've got an update for you on that as well. Now, because I watch and I pay attention, I see not only the Party for Socialism and Liberation, but yesterday the signs from the Socialist Workers' Party, there are commie groups all over the place with their Workers' World signs and T-shirts. They're right out there in plain sight for the news media to see, but they choose not to see because they're all leftists and they're all dating each other and each other's children. But Mayor Eric Adams in New York held a press conference this morning, and he noticed something, and he's not having any of it.
There is a movement to radicalize young people, and I'm not going to wait until it's done and all of a sudden acknowledge the existence of it. This is a global problem. Young people are being influenced by those who are professionals at radicalizing our children, and I'm not going to allow that to happen as the mayor of the city of New York.
He's not going to, but the thing is we can depend on him to fail because he fails at everything. I had hoped for a lot from him too, and boy, he's been a massive disappointment, knowing he was going to be a Democrat, but I didn't think he'd be this awful, this terrible. He's horrible. New York City is, it's time for Snake Plissken to take over New York City. But with the likes of Neville Roy Singham, honestly, who is a Maoist and hundreds of millions of dollars, and George Soros, who is a Bolshevik with billions of dollars, with the Party for Socialism and Liberation in the middle of all these protests, Socialist Workers' Party in the middle of all of this, the praise coming from Hamas, coming from Iran. China loves to see this. Putin loves to see this. The Ayatollahs love to see this. Hamas loves to see this. But in America, we're being overrun. There is a war being waged against civilization.